This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. If you have not had the chance, check out our first book, 13-Step Guide to Success. It is available in paperback and Kindle editions through Amazon. If you're listening or watching for the first time, thanks for joining us. And be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, _Misfit Nation. That's _Misfit Nation. So you'll stay up on all our episodes as they release, while also having the opportunity of getting to hear stories of our amazing guests. Speaking of which, our next guest is the debut author of Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, a historical fiction set in Ukraine. This story is ripped from the headlines and will help readers understand the current Ukrainian conflict and develop empathy and compassion towards their plight. Our author comes to us from a family of military veterans and is a world traveler thanks to her time as a military child, or military brat as we like to call them. So without further ado, let's welcome to the Misfit Nation, Miss Teri Brown. How are you, Teri?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Rich. Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm glad we're able to connect. Like I told you during our pre-interview stuff, that this is something that's passionate for all of us right now, with the plight of the people of Ukraine right now and their tenacity and their fight and their courage. What they're doing right now against what was supposed to be a much superior force it's mesmerizing to especially veterans to watch it happen. It brings chills on our back of our necks and stuff, and makes us happy to see the little guy win. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few things that make me smile from one end to the other. Like the one woman that told the Russian soldier to put the sunflower seeds in his pocket. Yes. That way when he died, they would grow. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine having the guts to do that? But what I've also noticed is the guts of like Russian citizens who don't like what's happening, who are going out and, there's a picture of a grandma riding on the subway dressed in a bright blue coat and a yellow scarf. And, she's not saying anything, but there she is riding in the subway right through, her big town in Russia. And you see things like that and you realize that what's going on, although it is a Russian-Ukrainian thing, it's a government thing, and there are a lot of people who are involved who'd rather not be. So,
right. It's definitely a geopolitical kind of a power grab for those in power in Russia. Even their soldiers didn't know what was going on. Most of them who have either been captured or surrendered are saying they thought they were going to take the Nazis out of Ukraine, which is way beyond the truth. So it's crazy, the news that you're getting out of this. And it's like watching it live now. Past wars, you weren't able to really watch things as they unfold like we are now. But with social media and everyone having the ability to connect, you can see as it happens.
Exactly. And I think that's probably one of the best things that's happening for Ukraine right now is that people can see what's happening in real time. And even though some of the news they tried to kind of stifle in the beginning, it's getting out because there are ways to get it out now, and we're seeing what the truth is, and it's great to see. I woke up the morning that it happened, that they actually went in and invaded, and I was just devastated, and I had to kind of, we all are, but I felt like overly so, and it's because I spent 2 years writing a book and really getting into Ukraine, and the characters are fictitious. I have one character that's based loosely off of someone I know, but they're fictitious, but still they're based very much on real people and how real people are living in Ukraine. And so yeah, my heart was broken. I really felt brokenhearted about everything. And so when I see these stories of the people standing strong and refusing to leave and standing up to the bullies, I love it. It makes me happy. So I put that all over my social media.
The first night of it, I just got finished with an interview talking to China expert actually, and he asked me about Ukraine. So he wanted to talk about that a little bit, and we discussed what we thought might happen. And then as soon as I got off the interview is when it started. So that was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, and I stayed up till 3 in the morning watching it, and then went to work the next morning to do all my analyst stuff on it. And it was really real time analytics is a lot different than I thought it would be because I hadn't done it before. So to analyze as it happens was amazing, and to see the swell of emotions for the Ukraine people and their pride and patriotism was outstanding.
Yeah, I love it.
So Terry, if you don't mind, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself than I did, and from as far back as you want to go to how you got into wanting to be a writer to where we are now.
All right. So as you said, I'm an Air Force brat. My dad was in Greece when I was born. And eventually we moved to Ohio, and that's kind of where I did a majority of my growing up. And then we moved to North Carolina when I was 15. As a little girl, I used to say that I wanted to be a brain surgeon and an Olympic ice skater and an author. Well, I've made one of three, so I feel like I'm doing pretty good. Most kids don't usually pick one of three, so I think that, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good thing. In 2000, right around 2000, I started writing for small businesses, doing a lot of articles and website material and ebooks and, just whatever they kind of needed in written material. But I really, really wanted to do my own writing, my own fiction writing, but there was just that part of me that was afraid to try it because, if someone didn't, if I was writing for a real estate agent and I wrote an article and someone didn't like that article, I didn't worry about it because it just meant that they really weren't into, real estate investing or whatever I wrote about. But if someone doesn't like your character that you created or this story that you've put out, that's a little more personal. That's kind of like saying, hey, I don't like you. So I was really kind of afraid to let it get out there. But I met a young lady much younger than me who had a newborn, and she was trying to write her first novel. And she told me about this really great writer's retreat, and I should give it a try. And I don't know what possessed me, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. And I went on this writer's retreat and I wrote 50,000 words in a week.
Wow.
And I just kind of it just fell out of me. And I tell people that that's my first novel. It's never going anywhere. It's not that good. But it proved to me that I had it in me. And then I had that ability to have a story that it had a beginning and a middle and an end, and it did all the things a story was supposed to do. And then all I needed to do was work on the craft and get a little better at what it was I was trying to do. And so I wrote another, and then I wrote another, and then I wrote another. And this is the one, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, is the one that I finally really put out there to publishers to see who might take an interest. And it got picked up and it went out in January, and it kind of looks like I started the war, but
the war actually started in 2014. You can't take all full credit for it.
Yes, that is true. That is true. But it was very quiet for a long time, I think.
Right. Well, I mean, you wrote a story based on it, so I mean, you can take some of it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So the story that I wrote actually ends in 2016, but the bulk of the ending was in 2014 because the character that I told you about in the book, her name is Iona, and this is someone that I know that was visiting from Ukraine for a summer, because she was doing a camp counselor program where they come in for the summer, they get to work at the camp, and then they get about another month on their visa where they can go travel around the United States, and then they go home. Well, she had done that in the summer of 2013 and came back again for the summer of 2014. And when she went to go home in August, she couldn't because her parents lived in Crimea and she was unable to go home. So she stayed another 3 months. They were able to extend her work visa. She was working with a lawyer, and the lawyer was telling her, we're not going to get this done fast enough. You're not going to be able to stay. And I'm going to get you to maybe Poland or to another refugee camp. And this friend was a friend of my girls, and she just decided that she didn't want to do that she didn't want to be in a refugee camp somewhere other than home. So she disappeared, and she disappeared into New York City and went into the Brighton Beach area and just kind of slid away, but kept working with her lawyer, and eventually did get everything got worked out. She was allowed to stay, and so she stayed. Well, she came back to see us in 2016, and she told me this story, this little sliver of a story, and I thought, there's no way, that cannot be true. I must be misunderstanding, because she has a very thick accent, and I'm thinking, this is a communication problem. So I rearranged it a little. I asked her again. No, that's what it kept coming back to. So then I started you mean to tell me? and everything was, yes, that's true. That story was so incredible to me that I created an entire novel so that I could tell that ending. And that little ending, what's really interesting is I have a Kirkus review, and the Kirkus review said, there's a great deal of improbability in that portion of the tale, meaning the ending. And what's funny is it's the only portion of the tale that's true.
Wow. It's so fake. It can't happen. And that's why
it is true that often truth is crazier than fiction. And in this case, it really is. And I can't tell you what it is, because then it would ruin the whole story. So, by all means, run right out there and buy it. But but it was, like I said, this little teeny sliver of a story of hers. And then I just created 80,000 words around that so that I could tell that story.
That's outstanding. That's a great way to have actual data to go with as you wrote your story, just based on using that ending to circle that with your thousands of words and get that thing out there.
Yeah, I always knew where I was headed. I didn't quite know how it was going to get there, but I always knew what the ending was. So you just I was able to let the story flow very naturally. And when something would come up, as long as I could wind that back to that ending I knew I was going for, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Kind of like planes, trains, and automobiles. When John Kennedy's on the train trying to get someplace, but he has to take all these different avenues to get there, but he got there, and you were able to do the same thing. You were able to do that through your creativity and imagination, along with true stories, to get this book out.
And then because I had it set in Ukraine, which it absolutely had to be for this story, but because I had it set in Ukraine, then I was able to also weave in a lot of really good historical information about both Ukraine when they were still under communist rule. The story starts in 1973 and goes through, like I said, to about 2016. And so we see communist rule, we see early independence, we see later independence, and then we also see when Russia invades in 2014. So you get it's not a history book, but it does give a really good overview and gives people, I think, it may be more of an understanding about the relationship between those two countries over a period of time.
Definitely. And you said you used a lot of historical references. Did you just go like deep dive on Google, or did you go to libraries, encyclopedias and such to try to find as much as you can on it?
I love researching. That's one of my favorite parts about the job that I was doing when I would work for small businesses, is I didn't mind what the topic was, because that meant I could go in and learn. And so I would go in and do all kinds of research. So I did the same thing for this. And you start out with little small pieces, just kind of an overall understanding. And then when you're writing the story and you realize, oh wait, we're right now in 1989. Well, what would have been going on? And then you look up 1989 and you get in there, and then you find out, oh wait, this person said this thing. Ooh, I can fit that in. And then so like I found out which winters were the coldest winters, and I made sure to use those in the story so that I could have a really cold, miserable winter and those kinds of things. So it's very authentic in that way, where I tried really hard. I didn't make up places, and I didn't make up political truths. Like if there was an election, I had an election. the characters, of course, are not real, but the situations that they were in would be real to someone who had lived in that time in Ukraine.
And it's always great to have that authenticity when you're writing, and it kind of actually connects you more to the audience, to the person that's reading the book. They don't want to. I mean, there's some people that like to read the far fantasy books and stuff that
Right.
has
Right.
no delve into reality except maybe the first minute or so of the book where they say Johnny went to sleep and started dreaming. Next thing you know, it's the end of the book and he's coming out of his dream, and you have no idea really what just happened in the middle. But there's an authentic book like this is much better because it connects more with your audience.
And that's one of the things that I'm really, I hate what's going on in Ukraine. It really does tear me up. And I've been a little concerned and had a couple of people say to me, maybe you shouldn't be trying to market this book right now because of what's going on. And I kind of took a step back and thought about that and decided that no, I really need to market this book right now because I think it's going to help people develop a better understanding about what's going on, as well as develop an empathy for the Ukrainian people that they might not have otherwise. Because it's kind of like in any situation, if you don't know something about a group and you've heard stories, then you just believe what you hear. But if you get to know someone from that group, then you kind of have something to weigh all that information that you're getting against. And I definitely feel like, when you're done with this book, you feel like several Ukrainian people, and you feel like Ukrainian people kind of as a whole. And this compassion and this empathy, that's the kind of thing that we need to, keep all this hate and war from happening. I just hate, I think that no matter what side of politics you fall on, you can say that a sovereign nation should remain sovereign. And the idea that there are these bully governments that can just, come right in and railroad right over top of people and start not even just bombing political and military targets, but civilian hospitals. And I saw today, I don't know, you never know how much is true, but I saw today where it looks like there was a bombing on a children's and maternity hospital.
Yeah.
Well, it just sickens me. That sickens me. And I just feel like literature may be, one way to help fight the stupidity that's out there in the world.
To kind of right the balance of what's going on out there. And
yeah.
Like you said, there's some atrocities going on in that conflict. Like in all war, there's collateral damage, but in this instance, they are purposely aiming at apartment buildings. They're aiming at places that would be able to take care of people, and they're doing that on purpose to try to break the heart and soul of the people. And
exactly,
in the meantime,
exactly, and that's the point, because they weren't able to come right in and railroad right over them, and so now they're trying to break them. And I guess you do that by bombing a maternity ward, but I think that it's going to probably have just the opposite effect, and it's making regular people like me really ticked off.
Make you want to get up in arms and go over there.
yeah
I was reading today while I was waiting for a car to get fixed about a grandfather from Scotland who said he had nothing else to do, so he wanted to go fight Putin's people, so he went over there to fight.
Isn't that amazing?
Had nothing to do.
Just amazing. Well, and the number of people, Ukrainian citizens who aren't in the military, who are taking up arms and who are doing what they can. I mean, it just shows the kind of spirit that they have. They want freedom. They want to keep their freedom. And I'm very impressed. And
so many of their rich and famous they stayed put to fight. And yes. I mean, that's a testament right there.
Yes, I agree.
Now, if this conflict didn't occur, would you have gone over there and did kind of a release of the book there as well?
Thought about it. I had also thought about just kind of maybe starting out by heading up to New York City and like putting it out among Brighton Beach. Right now, with the conflict the way it is, I think that would be crazy for me to try to get in the middle of all of that. So I might have to wait until things
Cool a little bit.
back off just a little. Yeah. And there's no way I could go to Ukraine. I mean, that would be crazy. And I may be nuts, but I'm not crazy. So
Well, there's crazy. Then, like you said, there's crazy. So
there's crazy. Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to go full crazy on this one.
No.
Unless you really have
I've got
to.
kids and grandkids. They want me around.
Yeah, definitely grandkids probably watch around. Grandmas are always loved, and they want them there to be spoiled and then sent home high on sugar. So that's the best way to do it.
Let me tell you, being a grandma is the best thing ever. I loved being a mom. Being a grandma trumps being a mom by 10 times or more. It's amazing. Like you said, you get to do all the things that you love and none of the stuff that you hate. And then when you're tired, you send them all home.
when they're all amped up, you send them home. There you go. Have a good day.
It's like, bye, I love you.
I do that with my grand dogs. I have 3 grand dogs right now, so that's what I do when I watch them. I get them all pumped up, then send them home.
Send them home. I'm sure they love you for that.
They go nuts when they're here. So when you started writing, how long each day did you spend writing the book?
So I'm not, I don't know how other writers do it. And I always worry that I'm not doing it right. And then I'm learning now to just kind of give up on that I don't think there is a right way. I think there's a my way works for me. I tend to write in fits. Like I might not write for 2 weeks,
right?
Because it's not there. And then I might get like maybe 3 days where it's obvious I don't have anything else really going on. And I'll settle in and I'll write solid for 3 days and nobody will see me because all I'm doing is writing, and I might push out 25,000 words.
Wow.
Because it's like it's been percolating in there for however long. I do the same thing really with my business writing too. And I've told a lot of my clients that I really hate to work by the hour because I don't know how to charge them. Because I might be washing the dishes and thinking about their article. And do I really charge them for washing the dishes? But it means that when I sit down to write the article, I write it very quickly because I've been thinking about it for 48 hours. And then when I sit down to write, I already know where I'm going and I get the whole thing done in 45 minutes, but that doesn't mean that it took 45 minutes. So I think I do the same thing with my fiction writing is, it's kind of like percolating and I'm thinking, and maybe I'll jot a little note down or something, but I'm not actually writing. And then when I sit down to write, it just kind of all comes together and off I go. So I really love getting to go to like a writers in residence type program where I get a week or 2 completely just me and writing, where I don't have the dog to take out and I don't have the husband to feed and I don't have the laundry to do and I don't have my phone ringing and I don't have any of those things because I get into this zone and I just write and write and write and write and write.
I see on your website you have a second novel coming soon. You want to speak about that at all?
Sure. Yeah, it's called An Enemy Like Me, and it's set in World War II, but that's just a backdrop for the story, and it's really, really loosely based. My grandfather he fought in World War II, and we're of German descent. My maiden name was Buffmeyer. And when we came here from Germany, it was Buffenmeyer. So, it was very German. And in the story, I have the soldier fighting in Germany as an American, but that he's a first generation American. And what I'm exploring is that feeling of the idea that governments are the ones that kind of set up the wars and regular people are fighting them, and that the person that you're shooting is often very much like you are, and that in any other situation you might be having dinner with them. And that it really struck. And the reason that I came up with this idea was a story my grandfather told, because even though we were probably 5 or 6 generations in at this point, when he was fighting in Germany, he went through an area that he knew his ancestors had lived. And he said he was constantly thinking, Could any of these people be my cousins?
Huh. Yeah.
And that in any other situation, if he had come to Germany as a tourist, he would have stopped in that town and tried to find his cousins. And instead, he was armed and would have shot anyone who, of course, was planning to shoot him, because that's what you do in a war. And he would talk about that angst. And so I kind of took some of his stories and used it as a way of exploring that whole idea of the other thing is that he lived in Canton, Ohio, North Canton. And North Canton, when he was born, was New Berlin. And they changed the name to North Canton because of, German, anti-German sentiment during World War I. And so it got changed. And then, he's fighting in World War II and he's in Germany. So I kind of use that whole idea of just the idea that we come to hate people, and really we need to be careful. In fact, we need to be careful when we talk about, like Russians. Do we really hate the Russians, or do we hate what the Russian government is doing?
Right.
You have to kind of, I think that language really is important in situations like this, because I don't think we hate Russians, because there are a lot of Russian people who seem to be very unhappy with what's going on.
Right. Just they're afraid
have
to voice
be careful.
that.
Yeah, you have to be careful. So that's kind of what that one explores, is this idea of, that angst of the war, and the fact that, ordinary people fight the war that governments have started.
Exactly.
And, and how that affects not only them, but I show this from the side of the soldier, as well as his wife and his 4-year-old son. So.
Sounds very interesting, and another historical novel, basically, because it's from a time in history, right, where things were a little simpler, and everyone around the world was in the same fight basically at that time.
Yeah.
You really couldn't choose sides. Your sides were chosen for you. You had to do what you had to do.
They were very much so. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah.
That sounds like a very interesting novel as well. Hopefully that one kicks off and goes well, and hopefully nothing crazy happens when that one comes out.
Yeah, seriously. Because if so, I'll stop.
If so, write about making $1 million. I don't know. That might be the one thing you want to do at that point. And get that trust fund going for the grandchildren.
That's true. That's true. Those grandkids would like that, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would. They probably say, Grandma, let's write a children's book now. Okay. So if you had to give advice to an aspiring writer, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing, well, 2 things. Number 1, write. Just do it. Write. Even if you aren't planning to show it to anyone yet, write, because you don't get better at writing by thinking about it, and you don't get better at writing even by taking classes. You get better at writing by writing. So the more you write, the better you're going to be. So get started right away. Just start writing. And then the second thing is don't be as afraid as I was. Just go ahead and put it out there, because the worst that's going to happen is someone's not going to like it. And if someone doesn't like it, and you can ask them and listen with honest and open ears, if you listen to why they don't like it, you will learn how to make your writing better.
Right.
And it's worth it. It's worth it. So you put it out there, and they say, well, that's not bad, but don't get yourself all riled up and stop listening. Listen very carefully. And the next time you write, try that. See how that goes for you. And then the third thing that I would say is don't listen to everyone's advice. Go ahead and try something, but if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Move on. Not everybody's going to love your work. Not everybody's going to love your writing style, and not everybody's advice is going to work for you. So you just have to be open to listen to that advice, and then know yourself well enough to know what's really not working for you, and move on from that.
It's all good advice right there. I like that. The listen to hear advice is very important in everything we do in life, not just in our careers or creativity. Because a lot of people, they'll give you advice that have never done anything, and they usually see you do something. Well, I would have done it this way. Oh, okay. Then why didn't you do it? But you say, all right, thank you, and just move on. And that's a lot of the stuff you get. And like you said, when you get a ton of advice like that, you can't keep changing what you're doing based on a ton of advice. Maybe tits and tats it is, tidbits of this, and that'll help you out. And I think what you're doing in that advice will help all the aspiring writers out there.
Thank you so much.
And finally, how does someone get in contact with you if they want to either just have you on their show or just chat with you?
Well, the easiest way I think to tell people on a podcast is to go to my website. And it's www.terimmbrown.com. That's Teri with one R and M like Mary. And on that page, there's a contact page. There's all of my social media. You can join up for my newsletter. In fact, if you join on my newsletter right now, you can get the first chapter of my next book. And so go ahead and start previewing that, see what that's like. And by all means, go to Amazon, purchase my book. You'll love it. Review it on Amazon. I'll love you, that kind of thing.
Outstanding. Is it on anywhere else besides Amazon or just Amazon right now?
It's on Amazon. You can get it actually at my website. I know it's on Barnes and Noble. I've seen it on Abe Books and New Books, and I think it's on several places.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not exactly sure where all my publisher has put it, but pretty much if a book is sold, you should be able to get it there. So look for it. Sunflowers Beneath the Snow.
Awesome. Thank you, Teri, for taking some of your time to tell us about your book and to discuss Ukraine with us here today. And wish you nothing but success in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.